Hey, welcome everybody. This is the Hollywood Progressive Team back again. Dick, Sharon, Linnea. Over the weekend, we saw a powerful, thought-provoking play called Heroes of the Fourth Turning, written by Will Arbery. It's the Southern California debut, plays at Rogue Machine Matrix Theater on Melrose Avenue until October 16th. The basic story is on a dark Wyoming night, four young conservative alumni gather to toast the newly inducted president of their tiny college, Catholic college. She was their professor back in the day, and they're thrilled that she got elevated. But fueled by plenty of drink, their reunion spirals into chaos and clashing generational politics, becoming less a celebration and more a vicious fight to be understood. How did it hit you, Nia?
Yeah, so this play was interesting. We are not conservative, in case anyone was wondering. Um, so this was a delivery of content that I personally had never really seen before, and I sort of got, and the point of the play was to give insight into um, the conservative mindset, the conservative talking points, and also I think to humanize conservatives. In the playbill, there was a note from the playwright who talked about how he grew up, you know, in a similar, I don't know if it was Wyoming specifically, but in a similar sort of area. He would, his parents were academics, conservative academics, and so he would sneak out and sit on the front porch and listen to these very, very smart people have all sorts of debates while smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and talking about, Midwest sort of things like hunting and things like that. And so I think this play was also meant to humanize. Uh, I I did enjoy seeing the conservative mindset and more elevated um, conversations in the conservative circle. There were several things that I think brought all of us out of the dialogue and out of the story and out of the play. Certain creative choices, I think, imposed by the playwright and enforced by the director. They were intentionally meant to pull you out of the story, although we couldn't figure out why. We couldn't figure out what the benefit of those moments were. Um, but Rogue Machine Theater, I don't think we've seen a bad show at Rogue Machine Theater. They pick really great works. They have wonderful directors working on the plays. The theatricality of the actors in this one was as good as any others we've seen. There was a lot of physicality in this one. There was one character who, it was a 2 hour long play, and he was drunk the entire time. He was uh, very believably under the influence the entire time. It was a treat to watch. Um, there were, as I said, some choices made creatively that didn't fully mesh, and I think we all even when afterwards, we have our own little private discussion. We were trying to make sense of it, but I think the conclusion was we just didn't like those parts of it. But as a whole, it was enjoyable. It was really nice to see these more elevated conservative topics being talked, and it was nice to see the clash between the older generation and the newer generation of conservatives. What do you think, Sharon?
So I enjoyed it very much, and I just want to say for those that follow us, we generally do not do a review of a play that we have not enjoyed. So the fact that we're even having this discussion is an indication that we went to see a play that we liked, and we really want to strongly encourage everyone in the Southern California area to take advantage of the growing and very lively and robust theater community that exists in Southern California. There are dozens of small 99-seat or smaller theaters throughout Southern California. And we've started doing these reviews because we really like going to these plays. We get a lot of enjoyment. Sometimes we learn something. And when we see something that is really just bad, we just don't comment on it. So obviously I enjoyed this, which doesn't mean that there were some aspects of the play that I would rather were not included. The four 20-somethings that were returning for a somewhat of a reunion, because as Dick said, their professor was being promoted to become president of their small conservative Catholic college. They had 2 hours of talking about their lives, and politics kind of came into it. But, you know, among the three of us, I am the one who comes from a Christian background, and I am a Christian. And I am obviously, I'm not a white nationalist Christian.
I wouldn't let you in. Okay? You tried, but
but there was a time, you know, like 40 years ago, that I did belong to a church where there maybe today there are people who might consider themselves white nationals. What has happened with the Christian community, the far right, radical right Christian community, is an evolution that has happened pretty quickly. I might even call it a revolution. Over the past 40 years, there's been a change, and they've taken on positions where, you know, you have groups of people that they say that they are the right, they're conservatives, but really it's becoming more like pack mentality, where people don't really know about particular political philosophies. They just group themselves with a group, and whatever the leader of the group says that becomes the truth for them. And they're ruled more, their behaviors are largely emotional rather than rational. And that really came out in the play. It's a lot of discussion, a lot of arguing, and true. One actor who was able to very convincingly portray someone who was sloppy drunk for 2 hours.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, so my feeling was it was marvelous acting to be able to capture such emotionally damaged characters. All the characters were really kind of emotionally crippled in one sense or another. And they oftentimes kind of seem like archetypes, representing deeply held political, religious, moral positions. And they weren't so much well-rounded characters. And in a sense, because it was such an intellectual play that was kind of distancing. You couldn't really root for any of the characters. You didn't identify with them. And now it's true, they were all representing some flavor of deeply conservative points of view, anti-critical race theory,
Did they actually discuss that in the play?
They did.
One thing that they did show was that there was somebody that believed in gun ownership, and this person was packing during, this actor had a gun on his hip during the whole time, but they didn't make a big deal out of it. But it was just, I suppose, meant to demonstrate that they were supporters of the Second Amendment. But I don't remember hearing.
Yeah, I do. I remember
CRT.
they were definitely anti-abortion. That came very strongly across, and anti-critical race theory and anti-the entitlement society. They were kind of talking points of the Steve Bannon, Donald Trump right. And maybe that's part of the distancing, because it was like, well, Jesus, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this. I don't. And they were good at expressing the points of view, the conservative points of view. The one character, the woman who was the president, she did kind of represent the history, as you were saying, of the evolution of conservative thought. She was a Goldwater girl back in the 60s, and Pat Buchanan acolyte, and she talked about that evolution. It was strongly done, and kind of as Nia says, there were a couple of things that there was one jarring thing that happened several times, and it was hard to make sense of what that indicated, and it was never resolved. It kind of they said what it was, but that wasn't what it was. And
Yeah, so we shouldn't talk too much about it because this is a waste of time unless we share what you're talking about. I will say that there were flaws. I still would recommend that people go to see the play, because afterwards we went and had dinner and the three of us engaged in like really deep conversations about the positions that many conservatives take. I personally believe that many people jump on the bandwagon without doing serious critical analysis of why they believe what they say they believe. And I even question whether they really deeply believe some of the things they say they believe. So I'm just not one who thinks that there's a major divisions between the left and the right. I am not one that thinks there are major divisions between Republicans and Democrats. I've said that this a lot. Our biggest problems are between the top and the bottom. And I think that the very ultra rich, the elites, they try to do whatever they can to fan the flames of division, because that helps them to stay in their positions of power.
well, I agree with that, but I think that on those positions that they took, the ones that they were, in one case, very vociferously anti-abortion, I think that is a difference in society. I think there is a definite difference. It may not be Republican and Democrat, but it's anti-abortion and pro-choice that are distinctly different, and as in this play, almost violently put.
Yeah, that's until a woman who is anti-choice actually gets pregnant herself, and then she secretly goes and has an abortion. And we all know that happens. You may not know it. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to talk until you get into that situation. Yeah, there was I think one of my favorite parts was when the character's name was Teresa, this young woman who was very vocal, very strong-willed, very confident, very sure-footed in her beliefs, but she ends up challenging the older woman, the woman who became the president, and the president sort of challenges her back and questions like, where did you get this, where are you getting this information from, and just kind of crumbles away her the resolve that she thought she had, which was interesting, and I think speaks to Sharon's point of bandwagon hopping. And a lot of people on both sides, honestly, on both sides, there are people who hear a phrase or they hear a catchy headline and they say, oh, I agree with that, absolutely I agree with that, but then they don't do the mental work of why, what is it am I agreeing with, and think about it, and they don't put themselves in positions to debate with someone on the other side to challenge their beliefs, and it leads to the division that we're seeing today, which is orchestrated by the powers that be to distract us from the bigger things going on. And we could go on and on.
Yeah.
But the play was really good. The flaws that we're talking about weren't with like the narration or the story of the play. They were these little extra side things that still, it doesn't take away from the core value of the play.
So part of what I was saying about the archetype relates to the one character, Teresa, who was virulently anti-abortion, but it turns out as the play unravels that it's really based on fear, and that's how she's emotionally damaged. I mean, she's kind of undone by her own life as she wants it to be, and these intellectual positions that she's adopted. I wanted to say too, the heroes of the fourth turning. The fourth turning was based on a well-known article for some years ago about 20-year epochs that go through history. The four of them are stabilization, decline, crisis, and renewal. And I thought that was particularly appropriate today at a time when it seems like we are at a turning. It's actually one of the 80-year times. Yes. And it seems like in many ways, our society, our politics are falling apart, are crumbling. And we hope that something good is coming, but that's not clear that that's going to be true.
That's right. And it's up to us who do believe in progressive politics and who have done our work in understanding history and doing critical analysis of these political philosophies. It's up to us to try to share that information with people so that we can come together with a group of others who are like-minded and offer solutions. And so,
Well,
it's
so
one of
that,
the
yeah,
ways that
that's
we
kind
do
of the
this.
point, because we oftentimes say that in the circles we travel in, we could all get on the same bus and go from one activist topic to the next and all agree with the people around us and we know. And here was a play where all the characters were strongly expressing points of view that we tend not to agree with, or actually desperately disagree with. But they weren't mocked. They weren't frivolous. They were well thought out. They were in some ways rather compelling, and you could understand. I mean, that was part of it, because I do oftentimes wonder, well, what's going on in the people's heads who think those things? And this play kind of uncovered some of that.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to repeat the name of the play and where it's playing and how long it'll be there?
Sure. Heroes of the Fourth Turning, written by Will Ardrey, plays Thursday, Fridays, Saturday, and Sundays at Rogue Machines Matrix Theater on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles.
And it's there through October the 16th?
There through October the 16th. You can read as well as
I
I can.
I learned around first grade.
Wow.
Okay, so good. We're going to be seeing another play. We would appreciate people putting comments down in the comment section on the article where we publish these videos, and tell us what you think about them and what we could do better and so forth. So thank you. See you soon. See you
Bye-bye.
tonight, Nia.
Yes.